few months ago, I picked up Battlefield 2042 as a fan of the franchise. During my playtime, going through bugs, complaints and general unfunness of the game, I wondered back to the last time I played a AAA game I truly enjoyed. I'm sure this is a mutual experience with a lot of us during this modern age of gaming. Now it feels like every game comes out unfinished or just generally unfun. A lot of us find ourselves looking back to games made 10 or 20 years ago, which is still extremely fun to go back and play. Why is this though? Well, let's look back to when a lot of people regard games as being in their peak, the early 2000s to 2010s. During this time, video games were less of a lucrative business than they currently are. Games were not released with the intention of being bestsellers or released purely to have high sales numbers and high profit numbers. They were released to create a fun experience, to show fans a world that they've created. Give people a new way to play and experience video games in brand new worlds of their imaginations. Especially in the early 2000s, a lot of these games were made by modders who just modded for fun. So this definitely does run into the fact that these games were made with passion. This time frame is heavily regarded as a time when new things were tried, experimentation was high, and it seemed every game had a unique twist to let it stand out. Uniqueness feels like something that's been lost in recent years of video game development. Trying new things that have never been done before with video games is regarded as a risk and avoided at all costs with modern games. Now the majority of games are only using tested formulas that they know will give them a guaranteed payout at the end of the day, opposed to trying something new which has the potential to be a great game at the risk of slightly less sales. Think of Call of Duty and FIFA in this regard. Call of Duty will not innovate until it is proven by another franchise that it will work, and FIFA is, well, all of them look the same to be honest. A lot of the developmental issues can be mostly pinned on publishers of the game. A lot of people don't realise the integral part publishers play in the life cycle of games. A lot of them just straight up order the developers around and make creative decisions for the game. The issue of publishers is they see the game as a cash cow that has to be milked as efficiently as possible. Therefore, all games coming under major publishers are extremely generic and unfinished, due to first of all, unrealistic time frames set by the publishers, second of all, their need to appeal to as many people as possible, leaving games often to be appealing to a mass audience, but overall soulless. Publishers can't be the only ones blamed here. The consumer still continues to buy pre-order packs for games and fund games that they've never played before. As well as this, a lot of people continue to buy the same product every year, like Call of Duty and EA Sports games, allowing this way of development to continue. This way of development has clearly rubbed off on some once respected game franchises like Battlefield, with EA notoriously being quoted saying, "Copy what's popular" to the developers of Battlefield, and that's why we got Battlefield 2042. If we look back at some of the most iconic games during recent times, they will have one common trait. They're unique and dare to step up out of the set boundaries and potentially appeal to less people at the cost of going down as people's favourite games. One of your favourite games likely tried something new, pioneered a franchise, had an amazing well thought out story, or just an amazing gameplay loop. Something that is regarded as rare nowadays. Personally, some of my favourite games like Titanfall 2 and Hotline Miami dared to dream within this industry. They tried something new and instantly became cult classics due to this. But why do all games released now feel really buggy and broken? Well, truly one of the biggest hands within this has to do with the capabilities of the internet. The ability to patch games over the internet has become one of the worst and best things to ever happen to the industry. On the good side, if a game has a major issue, it can be fixed, new content can be added to the game, and the game can become a live service game, which a lot of people enjoy. This is a much better alternate to what you had to do in the old days, where you had to pull all physical copies of the game off the shelf, reprint the copies, rebrand the copies, and then put them back on the shelf, and still have broken copies out in the wild. But unfortunately, the practice of patching also enables game developers to become lazy, dropping unfinished games with the idea that they can be patched another day, opening the deadly Pandora's box of unfinished games in recent years. Think of it, we never had this 10 or 15 years ago. The game came out packed with content, in a playable state, and you enjoyed it. Now games are released in a bare bones state and slowly filled with content until the developers move on to the next game. In some situations, developers know when they release a fully broken game, often forced to release it by publishers, and selling it to fans, which is honestly a disgusting practice. The issues are more than often fixed in patches, but they shouldn't be released in this state anyway. Patches just enable this practice, making them the ultimate double-edged sword. The ability to patch games isn't the only issue, however. With today's releases and how social media websites such as YouTube, Reddit and Twitter operate, getting a game hyped is just part of the game's life cycle at this point. With recent years in game releases, developers have been playing into hype trains that revolve around a game, and it's clear that hype is a very good marketing tool, especially when developers release information in a certain way it can really play into it. Hype for games is always going to be a natural thing, but there comes a point where people's ideas of the game outweigh what the game will actually be like, even if the game is in otherwise great condition. Fans can't be entirely blamed for this, however. Most can be put on developers who make mistakes such as announcing the game too early or making false promises during the game's development which never come true. Looking at you, Sean Murray. But at the same time, sometimes games are just held to an unrealistic standard. But then we have another trend in recent years video game making games a hand-holding linear mess, where it feels like the games can be played on autopilot with no thought, as you get guided through the game in one direction. No longer are the days where games make you think and give you thought-provoking challenges from prompts such as character interaction or hints. You're straight up told where to go and what to do by mission markers and waypoints. This obviously works in some games, but in recent years, games such as Fallout and The Witcher 3 have been criticised for their heavy hand-holding and the way they overpresent waypoints. One game that does the opposite to this perfectly is Dark Souls. The game drops you into the middle of the map, giving you many paths to branch out onto, some paths clearly too hard for you at the start. Therefore, you have to learn to come back later upon receiving more gear. Many people's first experience with Dark Souls is going into the graveyard, a high level area, and getting bodied by skeletons. I can say it's mine. Experiences like this lead to a learning process that is now lost due to the accessibility point again. A lot of people are part of RPG experiences like this, especially AAA ones made by mostly Bethesda or the Witcher game series that now religiously follow this route. Once again, indie games do this better, and the truth of indie games is that they tend to be more unique and fun games due to their willingness to experiment and the ability to have their own creative direction, not being under the control of a huge publisher optimizing their game for profit. Truly, I think the industry needs some innovation, as it's been playing it safe for way too long. You may notice everyone hops on a game type after an indie game paves the way. Look at PUBG, coming from a DayZ mod, which led to Fortnite, Apex and more. Hopefully the ways publishers operate and the industry operates changes up a bit, although I know that's just an out of reach dream for a lot of us. Until then, I'll see you next time. I hope you enjoyed. Remember to like, subscribe for more content like this, as I'm trying to get this channel going. If you enjoy content like this, please subscribe, and I'll see you soon.